happens when two people who have no RVing experience try to figure out what it will cost, hit the road, and then live like they're on vacation?
So that brings our grand totals to, drum roll please. Ouch.
Hi, if you're new here, we're Christine and Kevin, and along with our 2 young kids and dog, we've been traveling full-time in our RV for over 3.5 years now.
And during that time, we've had all sorts of experience learning everything RV related, from how to find great campsites and boondocking to route planning, a do-it-yourself solar project, and road schooling our kids.
And much more, including the costs of RVing. We've been tracking these numbers since the beginning, and for 2 number geeks like us with backgrounds in business analysis and engineering, we find it fascinating what it costs to live this lifestyle, how it can vary from one RVer to the next, and even for us over time, depending on how we're traveling.
So because how much does it cost to RV is a question that is asked all the time, we thought because we have all this information, we could share it with you. We hope that we can inspire you in your own travels, and sometimes the financial piece of that can be kind of daunting. So we want to show that it is possible, and then maybe this information can help you plan your next steps too.
When we first started RVing, we did our best to make a budget, but we grossly underestimated how much some things would cost. Luckily, we overestimated in other areas as well, but we're going to share the info that we wish we had had when we first got started.
So we're starting today with what will be the first in a series of RV cost videos, starting with what we like to call living like on vacation.
If you haven't heard our story before, we'll link that video so you can check it out. But in summary, Kevin and I saved up in advance, took a 6-month sabbatical from our jobs in the DC area, packed up all of our things, towed our travel trailer around the US on a whirlwind tour, and then relocated to Denver, Colorado and restarted work. We came up with a budget prior to that 6-month trip and actually revised it 4 times trying to estimate what these RVing costs might look like. What happens when 2 people who have no RVing experience try to figure out what it will cost, hit the road, and then live like they're on vacation? Spoiler alert, they spend way too much.
Way too much. It was just the 2 of us in a travel trailer, checking off bucket list destinations that we'd been dreaming about for some time, and we lived it up. You gotta admit, it was a good trip.
It really was.
It was the best.
Well, should we get into the numbers?
Let's do it.
We have a laptop here with all of the data that we'll be referencing and also putting on the screen for you all as we go along.
We left DC in May and we RV'd for 6 months through the month of October. Here's the route for some quick scene setting. Northern Virginia to Indiana and on to Arkansas. Then a crazy long drive all the way up to North Dakota. Down to South Dakota for some rock climbing in the Black Hills. Then to Wyoming to Grand Teton and Yellowstone. After that it was Idaho and Craters of the Moon, Montana and Glacier National Park. Next we went into Washington, the Olympic Peninsula, and down the coast through Oregon. We did take a quick break from RVing to fly back east for a couple of weddings, drive my car to Denver from where it had been stored, and then flew back to the West Coast to continue our trip. Onward to California, the Redwoods, Kings Canyon and Sequoia, Joshua Tree, and then over to the Grand Canyon in Arizona. The government shutdown happened, and so we headed on to Texas to visit family on our way to our final destination of Colorado.
Whew! We did say it was a whirlwind tour. What's not included in these numbers that we're about to share with you is our tow vehicle, as it was already paid off by this time. And even though we were moving at the time, we're not including the costs for storing our items in the moving pod or shipping it to Denver, Colorado. We also had a townhome at the time that we began renting out, but we did have 1 more month of the mortgage payment before that took effect. So if you have any of those costs as well, just keep that in mind as you're planning your expenses. Also keep in mind that RVing costs can vary from person to person depending on how big your family is, what kind of traveling you're doing, how fast you're moving, and many other factors. We just want to show you what this kind of trip cost us, and it may end up costing you more or less.
But probably less if you're not living like you're on vacation. Starting with cost for our RV, we bought a Skyline Koala 23CS, and the fall before we started our trip, we paid $14,649.50, and we put $5,000 down on that. During the trip, we paid $164.43 per month for a total of $986.58 for 6 months. We actually sold it a few years later for $14,500 even, but that also included all of the accessories that we had bought for it. Next up are fuel costs. We moved really fast and did a lot of sightseeing, so we paid a whole lot for fuel costs. We covered about 16,000 miles in those 6 months, and of which about 9,000 of that were towing. So in addition, we drove my car 2,200 miles to Colorado to park it there for when we actually moved there. Our cheapest gas on the entire trip was $2.99 in New Mexico, and North Dakota takes the cake for the most expensive gallon of gas at $4.29. That was an average of $849.03 monthly, several $100s more than what we pay these days, and $5,094.15 over that entire 6 months.
Vehicle and RV insurance. We paid an average of $98.43 a month for both our tow vehicle and the travel trailer combined for a total of $590.57. We went through USAA and felt like that was a good deal. Vehicle maintenance budget. We estimated too low in this category, thinking that a new travel trailer that we'd had for several months and had done several shakedown trips would have had all the kinks worked out, or it would have been too new for anything else to break. But we were a bit mistaken about that as well. But we ended up with some small water leaks in the shower, some recaulking that needed to be done, and a drawer that was the bane of Kevin's existence.
I hated that drawer.
Could not be fixed, but we did try several times. So luckily small things, and they didn't cost us very much. It cost us about $61.33 per month for a total of $367.98 over 6 months. But we had only estimated $200 total in that category for the trip. So it's a lesson that you should probably expect things to happen, probably estimate a little bit more than you think you need, because things do happen.
Propane. We actually didn't use any of the money that we had set aside for propane at all. We had 2 full tanks when we started, and because we were in the warmer months, we really didn't use very much, so we actually never even filled up once. I'm sure if the trip had gone on longer than October, we would have ended up using a whole lot more than we did. On to laundry. Laundry actually cost us a lot less than we estimated, but with only 2 people and no kids and being able to use large washers and dryers at the campgrounds we stayed at, it only cost us $11.63 per month, or a whopping $69.75 for 6 months. We also took advantage of all of our friends' and family's washing machines as we traveled.
Thank you!
Next category is firewood, and you never really have as many campfires as you think you're going to while you're on the road. We've heard that a lot, and it's definitely true. For about $8.50 a month and $51 total for 6 months, we enjoyed what felt like lots of campfires, and now we actually just use a propane fire pit. Postage. This is actually a pretty easily overlooked category, but when you're on the road, you might want to send some postcards, you'll probably need a mail forwarding service like we had, and maybe you might buy a gift for somebody and want to mail it to them. So these are just costs that need to be considered, and this cost us about $22.21 per month, which equals $133.23 for 6 months. It actually ended up costing us more than laundry did. Phones. Our phone plans cost us about $157.58 a month, and that was $945.49 over 6 months. Now, we could use the internet on our phones, but at the time we couldn't tether internet for our laptops at the time. So for our laptops and blogging and such at the time, we used free Wi-Fi hotspots. Being on vacation meant that we weren't tied to needing the internet the whole time, so we really didn't need it consistently.
Boy, has that changed.
Yes.
These things are cute, but they get in the way.
Yeah, I know. It's really just a decoration.
Onward.
Yep.
Health insurance. This category basically killed us. That's not what you want from your health insurance. because we were very concerned about having good health coverage on the road, and we were basically going from one health insurance plan through our work to another. When we got to Denver, we took the Cobra coverage that was offered for convenience and peace of mind, but boy, was it expensive. We really should have made an effort to find a cheaper, more cost-effective option, because on average that cost us $1,050.60 every month, for a total of $6,303.60 for the 6 months.
For just the two of us.
Ugh. Health insurance is important, but as much as you can, make sure that you have good coverage at a not ridiculous amount. And we should have done a better job with that. Thankfully, these days, we have a good plan at a reasonable price. Groceries. Sharing this one is hard because we so woefully under budgeted. I mean, it's bad, guys. We had this misconception that we would somehow change our grocery habits and that for some reason we wouldn't eat out a lot like we should have known we were going to do.
And we ate out a lot.
In fact, what you spend in this category on the road is probably more comparable to what you spend now at home than any other category, because you still have to feed yourself. And in fact, it might even increase because you don't have access to the stores that you're used to with the bargain deals and the things that you're used to buying in budget. And then there's wanting to try all the new restaurants that are near you, like we did. Okay, for groceries and general merchandise, we spent $849.73 per month and $5,098.36 over 6 months. But that's not even eating out. So that cost us another $722.60 per month for a total of $4,335.59 over 6 months. So we were bad at budgeting our provisions and our eating out. But in the end, it was important to us to eat well and enjoy the local restaurant culture in the areas that we were exploring, and we were willing to pay that additional cost to have that experience. So this really just highlights that you want to take a look what you're spending now in these areas and how you think you're going to spend when you're on the road. Are you going to be willing to cook in the RV and eat more at home, or do you think you'll want to explore and check out a lot of those restaurants?
Entertainment and activities. We actually budgeted really well in this category, knowing that we wanted to experience certain things on our trip. We paid $80 for a national parks pass, which pretty much deserves its own category because it's that important. We did a guided climb at Custer State Park in South Dakota, which was our biggest entertainment expense. We went to some museums, tours, a gondola ride, had state park entrance fees, and so on. So this category was $199.09 per month for a total of $1,194.56 over the 6 months. New clothes and toys fund. We definitely splurged again in this category. We happened to be due for some new clothes, especially because we were doing all this extra hiking at the time, and we needed some additional climbing gear. Because of that, we spent over 3 times as much as we had originally budgeted for this category at $194.88 per month and $1,169.25 over the 6 months. You will need to replenish things from this category periodically, so just account for that with the things you like to do and your hobbies, etc. ATM withdrawals, aka the really lazy budgeters catch-all category. We spent $131.40 a month in this category for a total of $788.40 over our 6 months. And we basically didn't track what we spent our cash on. It was things like cash for some events, entrance fees, food and drink sometimes. What it really means is we just needed to do a better job of allocating those things to their own categories. So if you're better at budgeting than we were at the time, then you will not have these kinds of problematic categories.
Campground fees. We paid an average of $1,058.97 per month and $6,353.81 over 6 months for camping sites. our initial estimate was $35 a night for a total of $6,300. And if we had stuck with that estimate, I think we would have been pretty pleased with the outcome. Our average nightly cost, based on a mix of staying in private campgrounds, state and national parks, regional parks, mooch docking on friends and family's property, and lot docking, is as shown on the side here by month. But we had some big misconceptions about what our rig could and couldn't do. We really thought that our battery would let us get through a night of boondocking and that we wouldn't have to have hookups every single night. Knowing that we would use a couple of discount programs like Passport America and Good Sam, and knowing that we would be mooch docking with friends and family for quite a bit, we really thought that we could bring our nightly average down to $25 a night. And we only thought that we would need hookups about half the time. Are you seeing a pattern here?
Yes.
Well, we learned very quickly that that battery was useless for that, and we could barely eke through the night a couple of times at Walmart. So be aware of the capabilities and limitations of your own rig, and potentially be willing to do some things that might cost a little bit more up front, but will save you money in the long run, like upgrading your batteries, adding a little bit of solar, buying a generator. Since our trip was temporary, we didn't even think to do any of those things. There could have been other cost-saving memberships we could have tried, or we could have used the ones that we had more frequently. If we had planned further in advance and booked state and national parks, regional parks more frequently, we might have saved some money that way, but those were pretty booked up by the time we got around to booking as we went along. We were traveling to specific things that we wanted to see and finding camping nearby, rather than having the flexibility of finding a cheaper camping option and then looking for things to do around that area. 4 days in one place was our average, and only on a couple occasions did we stay somewhere for 2 weeks. So again, we were traveling pretty quickly, but if you can stay longer, so a solid week or a month at a time, that is another way to save money.
So that brings our grand totals to, drumroll please, $5,593.72 per month for a 6-month amazing RV vacation road trip that cost us a total of $33,562.32. Ouch. So now we've shown you what it cost for us to live like we were on vacation. We were not thinking about long-term costs or any kind of cost sustainability. We had a whole bunch of misconceptions about what our RV could do and really about the lifestyle as a whole.
We knew we could enjoy it and live like on vacation because we had saved up in advance, and we had the safety net of the jobs to return to once we moved to Denver. But now, after years of experience RVing and seeing how we can really save costs and spend better in all these categories, it's a little painful looking back on, but it did teach us some good lessons. So we're hopeful that this will help you all as well.
Stay tuned for our next episodes where we talk about our subsequent years and much more reasonable costs and a much less scary cost picture of this whole thing.
Check out the description below for the blog post related to this video with all of the details. On our blog, we also post our current monthly RV expense reports that are very in-depth. We'll link that below as well, so you can check those out monthly, and you can even download the spreadsheets and graphs and charts that we use to track our budget.
If you like this kind of content, make sure to give it a thumbs up, leave us a comment, and subscribe. We'll see you all next time.
Bye!